Hi, I'm Sarah from Woven Rose Needlecraft, and this is the second part of the Woven Rose Guide to Cross Stitch, where we will be talking about charts. So if you have had any dealings with cross stitchers, you will know that above all else, we love to collect charts. I don't know why. It's like we turn into magpies and we see a shiny object, in this case a chart, and we just have to have it. And we know, I promise you, we know that there will never be enough time in our lifetime to stitch every single chart that we have in our collection. But that doesn't stop us collecting them. And I guarantee you, if you get into this hobby, you'll end up just like us. You'll be collecting charts too. A word of warning, if you want to back out, now is the time. So the first thing you need to think about when you're choosing the chart that you want to work on as your first cross stitch piece is what kind of design you're after. So I've tried my best, and it's very difficult, but I have tried my best to separate the designs into kind of quite broad categories to explain and to hopefully show you a few of the more popular varieties of charts available and designs available. And hopefully, if I can figure it out, you will be able to see them on your screen as I talk about them. So one of the most beloved type of cross-stitch design is the sampler. Now, cross-stitch samplers or needlecraft samplers actually have a very long and quite fascinating history, but the modern sampler, it's quite a broad term, to be honest with you, but the modern sampler usually consists of a collection of motifs or little pictures that share a common theme, and then often there'll be an alphabet or some numbers, although that's not a requirement, and then there will be a border going around it. And that's basically your modern cross-stitch sampler. In a nutshell, they vary enormously, and there are actually also people and companies who are recreating original samplers from as far back, I think, as the 17th or maybe even 16th century. It is incredible, and you can stitch a replica of a sampler that was stitched centuries ago. It's really quite incredible. And it's actually a great way to start cross-stitching is by stitching a sampler, because with every little motif that you finish, you kind of get a sense of completion. And so it's a nice way to ease yourself into the hobby, and they look really, really lovely on your wall or wherever you want to display them. Some of the very popular sampler designers include Crochet A Go-Go, Little Dove Designs, the Historical Sampler Company, and there are literally thousands of designers designing samplers. So I promise you, no matter what your interest, whether you're into flowers or Star Trek or Harry Potter or little woodland creatures or cake, etc., so on and so forth, I promise you, there is a sampler for you. The next type of cross-stitch design I have to talk about, because it's one of my very favourites, is the rather unfortunately named Fancy Lady. Why they're called Fancy Ladies is completely beyond me, but that's the term that's stuck. So here we are. And a Fancy Lady is usually a figure on their own, although you do sometimes see 2 or 3 people, but it's usually one woman or sometimes a man. We're all very equal opportunities here. Or often it will be an angel, like our Angel of Christmas that we're going to be stitching as the sample piece. Or it could be a fairy. Mermaids are very common. All kinds of people or something representing a person. I don't know if a mermaid is a person. I don't really know, but there we are. And what makes a fancy lady is usually how elaborate they are. So often they will be very detailed, you'll have often quite a lifelike face and quite lifelike skin. You will have usually some kind of speciality thread incorporated. So often you'll have metallic thread like petite treasure braid or krynic, which we will talk about later, or you could have whisper thread, which is kind of a fluffy thread that's often used in Christmas designs, and again it will be used in our Angel of Christmas or for animal fur. And then often you will have beads or other embellishments, and again we will go into them in more detail at another time. But fancy ladies, they can be quite an investment in terms of the materials that you have to buy and also the amount of time that they take. You also have to be very aware when you're stitching a fancy lady the type of fabric you choose, because these are one of those designs where the fabric is very, very visible and the fabric acts as a background. There's generally, with the fancy lady designs, there's generally no stitched background. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that's the general case, is that there's no stitched background. So you have to choose your fabric quite well. A lot of the times people will choose hand-dyed fabric, and we'll talk about that again later, or they could use a more standard fabric but in an unusual colour perhaps. So undoubtedly the three most popular designers for fancy ladies, at least in my opinion, are Mirabilia, Lavender and Lace, which is what we're stitching, and Bella Filipina. And I would encourage you, if you have a few spare minutes at any time, to go and look at some of these designs, because even if it's not your cup of tea, and it might absolutely not be your cup of tea, it's incredible. When you look at them, you think, how on earth have these pieces of art been made with a needle and thread? It's extraordinary. So there you are, that's the fancy lady. The third type of chart I'd like to talk about is the full coverage chart. Now, this one is quite self-explanatory. It's full coverage, so it's a picture, the entirety of which is stitched. And often full coverage charts are pieces of existing artwork that have been converted into cross stitch. So they're sort of pixelated and then you stitch each pixel, and there could be thousands and thousands of stitches. I mean, a piece with 100,000 stitches would be considered relatively, not small, but relatively manageable in the full coverage world. There are pieces of full coverage stitching that are close to 1,000,000 stitches. It would be years and years and years of work, but they are absolutely extraordinary. And it's quite bizarre to see the Mona Lisa or a Starry Night or any painting being stitched and for it to look so real. It's really, really extraordinary. There are several companies who are charting these designs. They include Heaven and Earth Designs, sometimes known as HADE, and Pain Free Crafts. And it's really important when you're choosing your full coverage chart that you double check that the company has the license to convert that piece of art into cross stitch. Now, the companies that I have mentioned are very reputable and they do have license, and they'll talk quite often and quite openly about their licensing. And what you'll see sometimes is they will have a piece of artwork by an artist, or they'll have a collection of artwork by a particular artist, and then one day those pieces will be discontinued, usually with some warning, but they'll be discontinued. And that's because the license, the company does not want to renew the license. So there is an exchange of money with artists, you know, who are designing these pieces and then they're being converted into artwork. Now, I don't think Da Vinci or Vincent van Gogh is getting any money out of it, to be honest. But the more modern pieces of art are being licensed correctly by the bigger companies. So if you're buying from a different company, just be absolutely certain that the original artist is being reimbursed for their hard work too. The final category, although it's not really a category, of cross stitch that I'd like to talk about is the chatelaine. Now, Chatelaine Designs is a company that was started by an incredibly talented artist called Martina Rosenberg. And Martina was unbelievably gifted, and she designed these pieces for cross stitch that are just out of this world. They're absolutely incredible. And you may have seen the mandalas, which is what Chatelaine is, I suppose, most well known for, that are usually, you know, a square in the middle, and then there'll be a picture on the north, south, east and west points, and then there'll be a border. They're absolutely phenomenal. And again, like the Fancy Ladies, they require quite a bit of investment in terms of the materials that are going to go into the piece. They take several years to stitch. I have not stitched a chatelaine. It is on the list, but I'm a little bit intimidated and I can't decide which one I want to stitch. And I know that it's going to take years, and I want to be absolutely certain that I'm stitching the one that I really want. So I'm very bad at making decisions, and I'm very bad at making up my mind, but I will get there. Hopefully 2026 is the year where Sarah stitches her first chatelaine. But that's beside the point. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. And I would not recommend, although you can do whatever you like, but I probably wouldn't recommend a chatelaine as your first piece, because they are quite intricate and time consuming, and they do require, like I said, quite a significant financial investment, because you're dealing with silk threads and you're dealing with beads and glass beads and beads that are maybe not as easy to find and have to be imported, etc, etc. But I think everyone should have at least one chatelaine in their home, and it is a wrong that I hope to right, like I said, next year. Martina is sadly no longer with us, but Chatelaine Designs continues to be run by her daughter, and it's really fantastic to see the efforts that have been made to keep the company going and to keep the charts in circulation, because they are absolutely phenomenal. So now we've decided what type of design we want to stitch. We need to look at what type of chart we're going to be buying. And cross-stitch charts come in, I think, 3 quite distinct groups. You have your paper chart, your PDF chart, and then your book or magazine chart. And obviously the form in which your chart comes is going to depend on which designer you choose. So for example, Pain Free Crafts and the Heaven and Earth Designs, they mainly come as PDFs. The Lavender Lace charts or the Mirabilia charts come as paper charts. So it kind of depends on where you're getting your chart from and what type of design you have chosen. So I'm going to just say a few quick words about each of the 3 main types of chart. And the first one is the paper chart. And again, I've taken out our Angel of Christmas. She's getting a lot of work this evening. So a paper chart comes like this, basically, some form of this. It's usually a cover image and then your chart. Now, if I was to fold out this massive piece of paper, and please don't look too closely because again, I'm not really supposed to be showing the actual chart on the internet, but I don't think you can see. You can see there it's upside down. It's a great start. It's upside down. Okay. You can see there it's a massive piece of paper. And that's our chart. So all the little symbols and the key that tells us what colour thread corresponds to what symbol is on that massive piece of paper, and that is your paper chart. Basically, you can photocopy it. It's a little bit of a caveat with that, and we're going to talk about that later, but you can photocopy it onto smaller A4 sheets and then use the sheets as your working copy and mark off the sheet with, or the smaller sheets with a marker if you want to. That's the way I do it. But like I said, there are caveats to that, and we're going to talk about that later in this video when we get on to copyright. So that's paper charts, massive piece of paper, and then you can work off it. Where do you get them? Needlecraft shops. You can get them online, or if you have a brick and mortar needlecraft shop near you, they will usually sell paper charts. So that's paper charts. Now we move on to PDF charts. And I have this one here, which is from Little Dove Designs. And I actually don't think Faye from Little Dove Designs sells physical charts. I think it's all PDF charts. So I bought this from her website and then printed it off. And there isn't really a huge amount of difference between this and a paper chart. You have your cover image. Here you have your list of threads and your list of materials that you need and how many skeins of thread and what symbol is what colour and where you're going to be using backstitch and French knot. It's pretty self-explanatory. There isn't a huge amount of difference between a PDF chart and a paper chart. And then we move on to the magazine chart. There are also cross-stitch charts in books. I don't have a book to show you, but there are cross-stitch charts in books. But I just have a magazine. Actually, this particular magazine is Cross-Stitch Gold, which was discontinued or taken out of publication, I suppose, during COVID. And it was terrible, because Cross-Stitch Gold was, in my opinion, the best cross-stitch magazine. And I don't think anything has ever really matched it. But there you go. Anyway, so magazines are really nice because they include tips and tricks. They include articles. There's readers' letters. Often readers will send in photos of their completed work, which is lovely. And also magazines are actually quite good value for money, because if there's more than one chart in the magazine that you want to stitch, well, you're still only paying, I mean, this was £6, so maybe about €8. They're probably more expensive now, but you're not paying that much compared to what you would pay for a single chart. But you're getting, in this case, I don't know, 5 or 6 charts. So it's quite good value if you're going to stitch more than one. And if I just show you, give you an example of what a chart in a magazine would be like. Here we have one. So here we have our cover image. And here it actually tells us what fabric we're going to be needing, which in this case is 14 count Ada. The next few pages are the actual chart itself. And then the last page is our key. So again, what threads correspond to what symbols. The usual. You're probably getting the impression, and you will be correct, that there isn't actually that much variation. It's all pretty much the same thing, just in slightly different forms. So that's your magazine chart. And like I said, although they're maybe not as popular as they once were, people are still buying cross-stitch magazines. They're still in circulation, and you find some really, really nice little designs. Usually quite, not small, but not massive. You know, if you're looking for a design that's going to take you maybe a few weeks or a few months, a magazine is actually quite a good place to go looking for them. So keep an eye out in your local newsagent or supermarket or bookshop, and then have a flick through and see if there's anything you like, and if there is, you can buy it. Now I want to talk to you about kits. And I think cross-stitch kits are a really fantastic way for a new stitcher to get into the hobby, because they don't require a huge amount of financial investment. They're generally quite moderately sized, so they don't require a huge amount of time invested into them. And also, once you have the kit, you have pretty much everything you need to get started. All you'll need to buy is a scissors, although you probably already have a scissors, and you might need to buy a hoop or some kind of cross-stitch frame. So I'm going to show you what's inside this kit. This is a Bothy Threads kit. It's called Feathers, and it's a horse. How sweet. I really, really like the Bothy Threads kits. They've kind of made kits their whole brand identity, and they do them really, really well. This one is in plastic. I actually think the newer ones come in cardboard, because we're all trying to cut down on our plastic. But I'm going to open it up now and show you what's inside and what you can expect, not just from a Bothy Threads kit, but to be honest, most kits include pretty much the same thing. So I've taken off the plastic. I know a lot of people don't like the sound of plastic being ripped open. That's fair enough. And I'm going to show you what this particular kit includes, although to be honest, most cross-stitch kits come with pretty much the same collection of items. So the first thing we have is our cover picture. This shows us what we're going to be stitching. The second piece of paper that this chart comes with is an introduction and also some instructions. So like I said, fantastic for a new stitcher. If you're not 100% confident with your back stitching or with your cross stitching, you're not entirely sure maybe what way your stitches are meant to go, you've got instructions there with little diagrams that shows you, and that is something you will find in a lot of cross stitch kits. It's really, really handy. Then we have our chart, which again I can't show you because of copyright, can't show charts, but you'll have to take my word on it. It's a really good chart. Cross stitch charts in kits usually come either in black and white or in colour. I actually prefer the black and white ones, and often they will have the actual stitches and then they'll have the back stitch, and then there will be a key obviously to tell you which colour goes with which symbol, etc, etc. Then we have a little leaflet, then we have some fabric, which is Ada in this particular case, and these little Wrendale Designs kits from Bothy Threads come with speckled fabric, which is very, very cute. I really, really like that. Actually, it adds a really nice background to your piece, but most of the time in cross-stitch kits, you will just get plain fabric. There won't be any speckles, but often it will come in a different colour. This is white, but it depends on the design. You could get any colour. Then we have our threads, and as you can see, they have very kindly arranged these threads with their symbols, so you know which symbol goes with which thread. So all very handy. And finally, we have a lovely John James needle, so you don't even need to buy yourself a needle. It all comes in the kit. It is genuinely a really, really nice way to get started. I know I keep harping on about that. It's also a really nice gift for somebody. If there's someone you know who you think may be interested in cross stitch but you're not 100% sure, buy them a kit. If they don't use it, they can give it to somebody else. It's a really, really nice present. So I can't really talk about cross stitch charts and not mention Pattern Keeper. Pattern Keeper is an app exclusively for cross stitchers that was launched in, I think, 2019, and it completely revolutionized the game. It really, really did. I cannot even put into words the impact that Pattern Keeper had on cross stitch. So how it works is you can upload your charts if you have a PDF chart. Not every single chart is Pattern Keeper friendly, but most of them are to an extent. So you have your chart as a PDF, you upload it into the app, and then you can work from the app and you can actually mark off your stitches as you go. I'm going to try and do a little Pattern Keeper demonstration separately that I'll try and include in this video up close because it's incredible, but it's something really, really worth looking into if you're thinking of stitching kind of more seriously, or especially if you're thinking of stitching full coverage, because Pattern Keeper, although there's lots of different charts that it will accept and it will work in, full coverage is really where Pattern Keeper shines. It is absolutely phenomenal, and if you watch my demonstration, I hope that it will make it clearer why that is the case. As far as I know, Pattern Keeper is currently only available on Android devices, but there are steps being taken to make it available on iPhone and iPads and that sort of thing. So if you are an Apple user, fear not. I do believe that Pattern Keeper is going to be available on the iPad and the iPhone at some stage. In fact, it might already be there, but I don't think it is, but I think it's coming soon. But for now, it's just on Android. It is a paid for app. It's not free. It's not that expensive, and in my opinion, it's 100% worth it. I use it pretty much all the time. I won't be using it for our sample piece, our Angel of Christmas, because that's a paper chart, and although you can, I think there is a way of uploading paper charts into Pattern Keeper. I just prefer it for PDF charts. But for full coverage charts, this app gets so much use and it has paid for itself 1,000 times over with me. So in front of me here, I have a design called Winter Warmth by Little Dove Designs. And you may remember that earlier on I showed you the PDF chart of this particular design, and I had printed off the PDF chart. However, when I'm actually stitching it, I don't stitch from a printed off copy, I stitch from Pattern Keeper. And I'm going to show you that now. So if I just bring in my tablet here and open up the Pattern Keeper app, and then I'll just scroll down until I find my Winter Warmth chart, which is here. And hopefully you can see a pretty good representation of what I've stitched so far. So obviously this piece isn't complete, and Pattern Keeper is showing me what I have finished because I've marked it off. Now I'm working on the house, so on this house up here, and I know that the next colour I need is 435. Now if I didn't know that, I would obviously zoom in and just select the symbol, but I know that's the symbol I need. And as you can see, it's highlighting in green all the stitches in this area that have the colour 435, which is the next shade I want to use. I'm trying not to show you too much of the chart, but let's say I want to stitch this little piece of chimney up here. So I'll zoom in, try and go as far as I can. And here's my 435 in the chimney. So we have 7 stitches, and I will go on to my actual piece and I'll stitch my 7 stitches. And then I want to mark them off. I want to tell the app that I'm finished. So I will go into my little marker and I'll select my stitches. I don't obviously have to select them all, but I'll select those 3. Let's say I haven't done the bottom 3, and I'll just click the tick. And now what the app is showing is that those 4 stitches are complete. And of course, if I wanted to then stitch the next 3, I would highlight them, so on and so forth. If I had made a mistake, just a matter of highlighting them again and clicking the frog. Why do we say frog when we talk about ripping out threads? Because we rip it, rip it, rip it. And that's where frogging came from, the term. Knitters talk about frogging quite a lot as well, and I think crocheters too. So if I just zoom back out and we can see our whole design, again, all these green stitches are 435 in this case. So I know, gosh, I've got a good bit. I have the house, I have, these are plant pots, I think. And then down here I have the birds. And now I can see my little piece of chimney that I completed up here. And of course, if I want to go on to a next colour, it's just a matter of coming to my sidebar here and selecting the next shade. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it works probably best for full coverage. Here's my current full coverage project. I'm going to show you this in another video actually. I'm going to try and make a video on stitching full coverage because there's many techniques and I have my own. But as you can see, this is what I've done. And we are at 61.98%. And on this piece, I have stitched 60,521 out of 97,648. I'm not going to tell you how many years this has taken me. And I suspect we probably have a few more before it's finished. But one day, hopefully, we'll have a complete piece. But yeah, so that is Pattern Keeper. So now we've come to the more serious portion of proceedings, and that is to talk about copyright. So copyright is really, really important. We all know this in every aspect of life, but with these charts and these designs as well. The people that design these charts and the people that make the charts or take existing artwork and convert them into cross-stitch charts, they work very, very hard on what they do, and they deserve to be paid for their work. It's as simple as that. I think we all agree on that. And the way that we ensure that they're paid and that they get fair reimbursement for their work is by respecting the copyright that protects these charts. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit about copyright now. If I don't get it 100% true or 100% accurate, please do let me know in the comments. I've done my research. This is what I believe to be the case. But again, if there's anything here that is inaccurate or anything that I've made a mistake with or anything that I haven't made clear, please do let me know and I will seek to rectify it. So I'm going to start by talking about magazine charts and paper charts, because the copyright that protects magazine and book charts and paper charts is pretty much the same. And that is that if you are stitching one of these designs, you have to have the original in your possession at all times. Now, listen, if you're going to the sitting room and the chart is in your bedroom, you don't have to bring it with you, but it has to belong to you. It has to be in your possession while you're stitching. You can make a working copy. A lot of people do. A lot of people, myself included, will photocopy these charts onto, sheets of white paper and use them as the working copy to mark off with your marker, because we don't want to blemish these lovely charts with a big old pen. However, I will always make sure that I have the hard copy, the original copy in my possession. So what does that mean? It means that if my friend, let's call her Mary, comes over and says, "Ooh, Sarah, that's a nice chart. I'd like to stitch that too. Can I share your chart?" No. She can go and buy her own version, or she can wait until I'm finished, and then if I want to give the chart to Mary, I can do so. But you cannot have a case where I'm stitching and then Mary comes along and I'm stitching off a photocopy and I say, "Oh yeah, well Mary, you can have the original because I'm using the photocopy." That's a breach of copyright. And then the reverse is also true. I can't say, "Oh yeah, Mary, hold on there a minute and I'll run you off a photocopy," and give her the photocopy and keep the original for myself. No. If you're going to make a photocopy, a working copy of your chart, you must have the original with you. It has to stay in your possession. The working copy is just that, a working copy for your own personal use, and when you're finished with it, destroy it. It's the same with magazine charts. If you're stitching something out of a magazine and then you finish and then you want to give the magazine to somebody, that's fine. But again, you can't be making photocopies and giving the photocopies, or keeping the photocopies and giving away the original. You can't do that. So that's paper charts, magazine charts, book charts. PDF charts are actually a lot more black and white. A PDF chart is for your use and your use only. You can print it off, you can put it on a pattern keeper, you can have it on another app, but you cannot give it, lend it, or sell it to anybody else, even if you're not stitching it. Even if I finish this chart and say, "Well, I'm done now, so I'll give this chart to somebody else," I can't do that. They have to go, that person has to go and buy their own version of the chart. This chart is only for my use. And actually, I don't know if this particular one does it, but a lot of the time when you buy charts, you will actually, PDF charts that is, you will actually see your own name on the chart. When it arrives in your email inbox or wherever, it will say licensed to and then your name. And that's making it very clear that it is 100% only for your use. Now, if you want to stitch the same chart 5 times, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you do, you can do that. That's fine. You can do whatever you want with it, as long as it's only for your personal use. You cannot, like I said, give it or sell it or lend it to anybody else. And you cannot upload it onto the internet. And you'll be surprised the amount of times that you see charts on social media or on certain websites where things are sold. I don't want to mention any names, but there are certain websites that are quite lax about this, where people are uploading charts and selling PDFs of charts that were never PDFs. So for example, Lavender and lace charts, you'll see a lot of PDF versions of these charts available online. They're not genuine because they never made PDF charts of these. These were only ever paper charts. Or you'll see these sort of charts being uploaded, and it's a scam because they've stolen somebody else's art and somebody else's work and they're selling it. So in my opinion, to buy from someone who's selling these charts is as good as theft. It's just my opinion on it. So yeah, that's basically what you need to know about copyright. PDF charts are for your use only, not for anybody else. Paper charts are for your use when they're in your possession, and if somebody else wants to stitch it, they need to have the original in their possession. And I hope that's clear. And like I said, if I've got anything wrong there, please do let me know, because it's really, really important.